Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello, welcome back to the Daily Palace podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. Our last episode was a preview on Friday of Palace's game against Doncaster in the Cup. And now the match just finished and we're doing an immediate mini episode, a quick sort of 15, 18, maybe even 20-minute reaction. We'll see how much we have to say. Palace, the Premier League team, dispatched Doncaster League 2 team 2-0 away from home with a first half goal from Daniel Munoz and Justin Deveni doubling the Eagles' advantage around 50-something minutes. You can see the preparation that's gone into this one there. The heavy favourites dispatching a lower league team. Is that the magic of the Cup for you, Dan?
That's pretty much what I was expecting of it. I think I listened to you and Alex do the podcast earlier. So just to remind myself what you guys were talking about. And yeah, I was expecting a fairly comfortable 2-0 result. And exactly what happened. After it took me about 15, 20 minutes to actually find where it's actually being showed on BBC. My God, that was so complicated and didn't need to be there. I was doing it on the web browser, and it starts off with EastEnders and then just cut immediately. Just no warning, no nothing. Just cuts into the game like as it's 2 minutes after as it's starting. Like, Beeb, you could have made this so much easier to deal with. But apart from that, it was a relatively sort of simple enough game for Palace. Dominated largely in the possession, stuck to plan A through most of it. Fairly solid defensively, fairly solid going forward. Mateta was kind of quiet, didn't really have much of the ball. But yeah, apart from that, we go through to the next round and we get Millwall in the next round. So get a local derby, a bit of a London derby as well. I think they're actually one of our closest Londoners, I think. So that's going to be fun. Millwall are always fun. If you don't know about Millwall, look them up. Actually, no. Bad idea, actually.
Yes, yeah. If we have a few listeners from across the pond and aren't familiar with Millwall's game, it might put you off the entire sport of football altogether if you find it out. So maybe leave it be until Palace take them on the Cup. As you say, it was a bit of a funny fixture. It's sort of scheduled on Monday, I assume for TV reasons, but then really the broadcast have not made the most of it. It's not on any kind of main terrestrial TV, and it's pretty difficult to find an iPlayer as well. I enjoyed the Palace fans making their feelings understood in the crowd with a sign. But have you ever seen one of those? It's like an anti-fascist sign I think it's like a Run DMC type font, and it's like an abbreviation of a rude word, and then it'll have like AFD or some kind of three-letter kind of far right thing in there. And this one had the same motif, same rude word, and then MNF underneath, meaning Monday Night Football. So I thought, fair enough. Equating it with fascism might be a little far, but it is certainly annoying to be asked to go up to Doncaster on a Monday night for a game that is kind of broadcast in the most slapdash, relaxed way. Not to do any disservice to the broadcasting team on hand on the day who were good as ever, but it wasn't easy. It was not easy to access. It was one thing about the game is that for Palace, it was a chance to assess a couple of players that we've not seen much of this season. So the new boy, Ben Chilwell, joined on loan, hasn't played a competitive game since, was it September, coming off the bench against Barrow, I think, in the Cup for Chelsea, and hasn't played 90 minutes in in donkey's years. He came on at half time. Adam Wharton also had another appearance. What did you think of those two, Dan? Did they impress you? Did they look up to speed?
Well, Chilwell did what I expected him to do. He was very deadly with the long passes. There were one or two where he switched the play absolutely perfectly to Munez, and it just hit him in stride. I think he even got up and it got into sort of like these kind of like the attacking areas. He got in some decent tackles along that sort of left wing, trying to keep their right side at bay. So I think he was fairly solid for literally only being there. I think what was it, Thursday, Friday? I think he signed. So he seems to be settling in well enough. And Wharton, I think he did really well actually. It's kind of it showed what we've been kind of missing for the last few months of one of these sort of almost like box to box midfielders. Him and Hughes had this really good sort of tandem of when one went forward, the other one would drop back and so on. And he had a really good sort of like link up play with Deveni as well, who I've got to admit he was probably one of the brightest sparks, especially in the first half. Very sort of attack minded, very willing to go at them. Doncaster really didn't have too many options to sort of slow him down. But as you sort of asking for Wharton and Chilwell, they did basically what I expected them to do. Nothing overly flashy, but it's for both of them, it's just getting match fit at the moment and then playing 45 to 50 something minutes at a time, I think will do them a world of good.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Chilwell felt like he was easing himself into the game. So there was nothing particularly eye-catching from him, but he was solid. He got up and down. I think almost like he was holding something back because by the time he came on, Palace were already in control. Nothing major was required of him other than to kind of hold his width and be sensible, and he did that. And I think we'll see more expansive performances from him when he comes on in different circumstances from here. But it was a solid first outing for him, and I was really pleased with Wharton. I thought it wasn't necessarily any individual thing he did, but and obviously there's a caveat that without taking too much away from them, this is Doncaster, not a Premier League team, but he played with a swagger, I think, and a confidence that we haven't seen from him since probably before the summer, and a kind of self-assuredness that I'm sure was hampered by feeling his groin the whole time. It's immature giggle there. I could find a better way of wording feeling his groin all match long.
Oh, you can do better than that. Come on. don't go down that road.
But yeah, no, he looked like he had that kind of the peace of mind, which perhaps is speculative, but perhaps comes with feeling free in his movement and his body in a way that he didn't before, and that's really encouraging for Palace. Deveni, I think, was a good one to highlight there, Dan. He's my player of the match. Was he your player of the match as well?
I definitely would be the player of the match. But the Beeb gave it to Hughes, who was solid.
Was good.
He was solid. He had a lot of really good pinpoint passes from deep.
Yeah.
Which
his ball for Devenney's goal was very nice as well.
It was absolutely brilliant. He's been doing that basically ever since the Man City game, and it's just like, why couldn't he been doing that at the beginning of the season? I don't know where this guy's suddenly come from, but he's now sort of coming one of these sort of like deep line playmakers and sort of being able to sort of pass off these pinpoint accurate passes. But as I said, go back to Deveni, as we should be, because that's what you asked me about. He was one of the brightest sparks, definitely in the first half. Doncaster couldn't really match him. He had some really good link-up plays with Mateta as well, and he would pass the ball out to Kamada and to Munez, and he would sort of pass it off and then move into a position where he would get sort of a little bit of space. But yeah, definitely probably my player of the game, more over Hughes, but I'm not the BBC commentating team.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Hughes was a fair shout, and the fact that we're not giving it to him and the BBC are is maybe reflective of simply as opposed to the BBC commentary team. We watch a lot of Palace and have got used to these performances from Will Hughes. No longer surprised to see him really get his foot on the ball and dominate games like that. But that shouldn't take away from what a great performance it was by him. But yeah, I think I was really impressed with Deveni. That it was just the kind of intelligence of the movement. He was very good at touching the ball kind of consistently into space, offloading at the right moments, getting into good positions. He should have scored before the one that he actually did get when Mateta cut across to him. But by God, he made up for that with that chip was absolutely brilliant. I think it's a chip, an opportunity that is afforded him by some slightly unsure of himself goalkeeping from Sharman Lowe, I think he was called in the net for Doncaster. I liked Sharman Lowe. Sharman Lowe sounds, it sounds like a boy from Surrey who's got too deep into his gap year. 20 years later, find himself Sharman Lowe to me. But I think, it was really, really nicely taken, Deveni, and well deserved, because he was. While Doncaster's resistance was at its greatest, he was the player probably with the most ideas and most drive and impetus in the Palace team. So I think he deserved that, and it was a performance he deserves a lot of credit for. On that, let's take a pause to give some credit to our sponsors who make this possible for us, and then we will wrap up with some more concluding thoughts about the game. Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencaster came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencaster. So yeah, quickly, Dan, what were your thoughts on Doncaster this game? I think they gave a decent showing. It wasn't plain sailing exactly for Palace, was it?
It wasn't totally plain sailing. They gave us a couple of scares. Definitely in the last 10 minutes or so, they started to press really high and made sure to make life really uncomfortable for Palace. I think Molineux was probably one of their bright sparks that Alex pointed out on Friday. And after sort of listening to that analysis again, like watching it back and going, yeah, he's probably one of their better players. And I think he had at least 2 long shots. I think one of them was only like maybe sort of a couple of inches away. And he definitely made his presence known. Mitchell definitely had to keep an eye on him for as long as possible, and then Chilwell towards in the second half. But Doncaster on the whole, they weren't total pushovers, because as Palace had very much dominated the possession of the ball, but we really didn't do that much with it. It was sort of we'd go forward, and then Doncaster would probably either just try and get a little tackle on, or we do one too many passes, or just no real impetus at times. So it kind of lent them back into the game. Just they lacked any kind of like real finishing. They had 1 or 2 moments where there was a heartbeat just stopped as sort of we have an open goal. Matt Turner having a couple of weird moments where he slightly out of position, or sort of slightly lackadaisical pass, and it's like, oh, come on, man, wake up, come on, don't do anything silly now. So Doncaster gave a really good account of themselves, and they probably could have actually got a goal out of it in at least one of those situations. But luckily for us, it didn't go in. So we go on to the next round.
Yeah, Molineux, the Luke there, the most intimidating, the most formidable Molyneux in English football right now, given Wolves' position in the table. The biggest compliment I could say of him, he was really dangerous on the day, and he wasn't far off for a couple of those shots. When sort of second big one came in the second half, and he kind of whips it just over the crossbar towards the opposite corner. And I thought to myself, non-ironically, they know what he's going to do, cutting him with his left and curling it, but they can't stop it. It's like Iron Robin, which, if I'm thinking non-ironically, you're like Iron Robin. It's probably a decent performance or a poor reflection on Palace's defending. I think he did look really good. And was he Owolu, the centre back, who was kind of up against Mateta?
Number 5, Owolu. Yeah, he was put on a decent defensive showing. Definitely one stopping Mateta at point blank range. You even saw Mateta's face. He literally kicked the ball and it just came right back at him.
Yeah, I mean, all game long he made life really difficult for Mateta, who was forced to play quite wide at times to make things happen and make the ball stick. And I didn't get much of a chance to see what he was like on the ball in the game because of the way Doncaster were playing. But if he can defend like that, you think he's got potential definitely to go on and play at a higher level as long as he's tidy enough in possession. I was really impressed with him. And I think to wrap things up, Dan, I'm going to ask the question. Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, all out of the FA Cup at this stage in proceedings. Is the door open for Palace? Could they, are they a serious dark horse now? Do you think? I'm not saying you can make them FA Cup favourites, but are you starting to dream?
Slightly, because I was having this conversation with a mate of mine who's an Arsenal fan who's already out. So he was going, it's basically the favourites are one of the Man United, one of the Manchester clubs, and Newcastle. They're definitely the favourites. And I think...
when you say one of the Manchester clubs, you literally mean that Manchester City.
City is definitely, but...
either of the Manchester clubs.
Let's say that much. But either way... but I think Palace and even probably Brighton might be probably considered slight outsiders here. If we get a lucky draw after Millwall, we have to get past that first. But we get a nice favourable draw. I think we could possibly get to probably a semi-final out of this. And at the very least get a semi-final at Wembley, which we haven't done for, better part of a decade now. So...
there are plenty of good teams still in it, as you say, with the likes of City, Newcastle, Aston Villa, Brighton. I think Brentford are still there, aren't they? But few, I guess Brighton and Brentford would. I think not as many teams are in as good a run of form as Palace and have as little else to play for in a way. Because I feel like, again, I was saying this with Alex last Friday, Palace could really push on and try and finish as high as possible in the league. And I'm not saying they shouldn't try and finish as high as they can, but the European places are probably quite a big ask given the terrible start to the season and the quality of the teams there. That said, Palace's form is one of the better in the league. They're certainly one of the tougher teams to beat at this point in the season. I think that's fair to say. And if they keep their defence fit, they'll continue to be. So why not really put everything into it and have a good run at this cup? I think. Why not?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Why not go for it? We've got nothing else at the moment unless we go on a mad run. There's still some time left. It's still possible to go on a mad run and push for sort of top 10, but I think that may be a little bit out of reach. If we can keep injury free or more or less, I think there's possibility. But as we're talking FA Cup, why not go for a run? Absolutely, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, Dan. Glad we're on the same wavelength. I'm now pushing for the FA Cup as Palace's main priority. and going to claim that I've always considered it the most important prize in world football. And Palace, why not go for an FA Cup run? You, the listener, why not leave us a 5-star review? If you've got this far, we always appreciate it. It helps us be discovered. We will be back tomorrow, the next day, the day after, and the day after that. And we hope you can join us for as much of that journey as possible. Thank you, Dan, for joining me today.
No worries, mate. It's been a bit of a late one, but you can still do this.
We said that hopefully it'll be easier to locate than Palace Doncaster was on the Beeb. And yeah, we hope to catch you again tomorrow. Bye for now.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.